my ADHD family. Welcome to another episode of ADHD Love Parent Talk, where I bring on different guests and we talk about all things ADHD. And I'm very excited today to have Natalie on, and we are going to talk about really a situation around her daughter. Her daughter was diagnosed with ADHD. So from a parent's perspective, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that and just give you some really good tools to put in your toolbox. So if a situation similar comes up, you'll have those tools to pull out later. So Natalie, it's great to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then why do you know so much about ADHD?
Thank you for having me on. And yes, I can tell you a little bit about myself. So, single mom, 4 kids. I'm just recently going through a separation and divorce. It's been taking forever, no thanks to COVID.
Right.
And 4 kids. The oldest, he is 20. Then I have an 18-year-old daughter, a 16-year-old son, and a 9-year-old daughter.
Oh, wow.
And I left work probably just before I had baby number 2. And so I was a stay-at-home mom for pretty much 18 years. And I was a dental assistant before that. And then through the course of my journey with my daughter, I ended up going into life coaching, specializing in ADHD. And the reason I know so much about ADHD is because of my daughter's journey with ADHD and just what she had gone through. And I wanted to learn the most I could about it so that I could advocate for her. Well, not only advocate for her, I wanted to understand, everything about it and understand where she was coming from so I could, best accept her, where she was, and that, the journey she was going to be going on in her way and in her own time. And so, yeah, I just sort of made it my business to learn everything I possibly could about it. And I joined a support group. Then I got a life coach for her. And I ended up working with the life coach myself, actually. So, and then one thing led to another. I went to the ADHD conference with the coach. I can't even remember what year that was, to be honest. I think it was in Atlanta a few years back.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, it was awesome. Such a wonderful experience. Just the acceptance, and everybody there just got it and understood. And I came home so energized. I was exhausted because it's a very exhausting thing. I don't know if you've ever been to one, but
No,
it's amazing, but exhausting. And you definitely need a recharge when you get home. But at the same time, I felt so just, it was like a whole new world for me. It's like being on this community on Instagram, right? There's so much love and acceptance and everybody just gets it, right? So that's sort of where I started to understand that I think I want to do this. I think I want to go into, ADHD coaching and, sort of check it out. So that was sort of my journey, I guess.
Yeah, that's very cool. So we're going to talk a little bit about the coaching piece, but when was your daughter actually diagnosed, and like what age, and then what type was she diagnosed with?
She was actually diagnosed. What happened was, she kind of flew under the radar like a lot of females do. She did really well in school. She was kind of an overachiever, big time perfectionist. Up till about grade 7, she was joining every club, joining every sport, straight A student. And then grade 7 hit, and whether it was the difference, I think, the puberty piece and the hormones changed things. And then I think also, years of bullying through relational aggression didn't help. And then I think also the increase in curriculum and responsibilities and managing your time and organization, it all just started to come in on her. And so she really struggled with grade 7 socially. And so by the end of grade 7, she missed school a lot, and she was very depressed. And, she basically said to us that if we didn't let her switch schools, that she was going to either run away or harm herself. And so first thing we obviously did was get her therapy.
Right.
And then we switched her schools in grade 8, and then it was a lot harder than she realized it was going to be. And even though she seemed to sort of get accepted in, I don't know, it was a lot harder for her than what she thought. And then one thing led to another. Her mental health deteriorated, and she ended up in a 3-day hospital stay.
Okay.
And coming out of that, they had diagnosed her with general anxiety disorder, I think.
Okay.
And so they put her on medication, antidepressants, and it was actually the antidepressants. They caused her to go into like a hypomania. So she was doing some crazy stuff, like ready to jump out of a moving car. Her anger was just off the charts. Her impulsivity was like crazy. She was jumping up on desks and dancing, and so it was actually the special education and resource teacher that suggested to us, asked me if she had ADHD, and I said, not that I know of. And she said, it's just that you can see this with those with ADHD or bipolar, is when they go on antidepressants, it can like over exaggerate their hyperactivity and all that stuff. So we decided to take her off the medication, let her kind of come down a little bit. And then we looked into a psychoeducational assessment, but we did it privately because we figured she was going into high school soon, so we needed to sort of get on it. And sure enough, we took her for a psychoeducational assessment. And I feel like the assessment wasn't 100% accurate because the problem was her teacher left on maternity leave. So part of the questionnaires is talking to the teacher.
Right.
And so the teacher didn't answer all the questionnaires. And so I feel like the degree at which they had assessed her for her ADHD was a lot less than what she actually is.
Right.
And
makes
so, yeah, so she came out of it diagnosed with ADHD. I'm trying to think. I believe it was sort of the mixed, right? She was a mixed.
Okay.
So she was hyperactive and inattentive. She was both. And of course, the whole comorbidities of anxiety was also there. And she was in, I'm trying to remember, I think it was major depressive disorder, but she was in a partial remission or something like that is what they had sort of assessed her at the time. And they did say to us that, they kind of warned us that there was a possibility down the road that it could, she could end up with borderline personality disorder, or bipolar or both or something. So that was sort of the beginning of that diagnosis and journey for us.
So when you had that diagnosis, and so you said this was probably about 8th grade now, is that correct?
Yeah.
About 8th grade. So once you guys had that diagnosis, how did you feel? I mean, did it answer a lot of questions for you? Because like you said, it's the beginning of the journey. You still had some, miles to go, but how did you guys feel about that diagnosis?
I think for me, it just all made sense.
Yeah.
It definitely made me look a little bit at myself and my upbringing and, how the things I experienced in school and, my report cards and things teachers said. And it just all made sense to me. And I think for her dad, it was different. He didn't like the idea of a label. He didn't actually really believe in it, probably still doesn't, to be honest.
Right.
And I think he was thinking that it was just going to be an excuse,
Gotcha.
and that it would enable her to, um, I don't know how to describe that. I don't want to say cut corners, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I looked at it as I'm going to advocate for her, or I want to model to her how to advocate for herself sooner or later.
Right.
And, I'm going to help her get accommodations for the way her brain wiring works.
Right.
And he didn't really believe in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
He felt that it was sort of going to be enabling. So it was a challenge. The diagnosis was a challenge for us as parents, or husband
Gotcha.
as wife.
I gotcha.
Not so much, you know what I mean? I think it
Mhm.
was great for our daughter, at least from my side of things, for her to know that at least one of her parents understood
Yeah.
and got it.
Yeah.
She felt more accepted.
And that makes
And so
perfect
for
sense.
her, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I think for her, there was part of her that didn't want to admit it. Like there was times where she said to me, um, it's like, I gave birth to her, so I did this to her.
Mm.
The times when she'd really struggle, and she just felt like she just wanted to be normal and fit in, and she didn't want to take the medication because then that made her different.
Right.
And even getting some of those accommodations made her different,
Right.
and it was very hard for her, I think.
Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
that makes perfect sense. I mean, even with my children, I'm glad it happened earlier in their life because I can make it look differently, right? I can make the whole picture look differently.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, why would
Mm-hmm.
you want to be the same as everybody else? I mean, why would you
Mm-hmm.
want to be exactly like your friends? And I mean, I just made the picture different. And when they struggled, we talked through the struggles. And yes, we
Mm-hmm.
connected it to the fact that they have ADHD, but that was okay because these
Mm-hmm.
are the different strategies we can put in place to help you get through those moments. And speaking of
Mm-hmm.
that, what was your next step? So now that you had this, yes, there are some, disagreements between you as parents, but how did you help her? What type of things did you put in place for your daughter to help her get through her day to day?
I think she had a really hard time accepting it. And the funny thing is, we talk about the normal and fitting in and all that, but at the same time, she always wanted to be different anyways. And I mean, I was the type of parent that always encouraged my kids to be different. I always encouraged them that it was better to be a leader than a follower, and to stand out on your own and own it. Just, you want to be different, then you got to own it, right?
Yeah.
And so for her, it was challenging because you know the acceptance of understanding that her brain, that she just learned differently,
Hmm.
that there was nothing wrong with the way she learned. It just was different from the way the school system taught her.
Right.
And
Right.
so trying to help her understand that there's power in understanding your wiring, and that with that power, it's great because then once you try to make it your business to understand how you learn, then you can set yourself up with all these tools and strategies and all that stuff, right?
Gotcha.
And get the school system to meet you, you know, and to accommodate you. And she had a really hard time with that. And then, we tried medication. The medication definitely helped her with her schooling. She did really well in school when she was on it. Then she would start to feel great and think she was doing awesome, and think, I don't actually need this. And then she'd go off of it.
Gotcha.
And then it was like whoosh, crash and burn. And her grades dropped. She would procrastinate at getting her work done. Total gun to the head motivation. And she got away with it in grade 9. She did like an amazing job keeping up. She got really behind in her math, and she had this amazing math teacher who let her come after school for I don't know how long and take all these tests after school.
Okay.
She'd give her as much time as she needed, and she caught up on all the tests. She barely studied for them. And then she brought her grade up. Oh my gosh, she was failing with a 46%. And then by the time she got to her exams, actually, I think she even had EQAO that year, the government testing thing.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so that was basically her studying. Then she was able to do amazing on that. And then that was her studying for her exam. So she ended up passing with, I think she brought her mark up from a 46 to a 76 or something.
Oh, wow.
Within like a month. So, of course, this was awesome, right? She thought she could keep this up. And then she quickly learned that she couldn't, and that, she would procrastinate, get behind in her work. And then all of a sudden it was like this mountain of work, and it was overwhelming her. And then she just didn't know where to start.
Okay. Okay.
And the hard part was that, I knew what I knew, and I was trying to help her. She didn't want my help. So that was the challenging part, was, she didn't have the buy-in to want to learn about how to get around this stuff.
So what are your tips for parents who are going through a similar situation like you, where the child knows that they have ADHD, they, like you said, just do not have that buy-in? So what are your tips for them as they're struggling as parents to help their child?
When I look back on it, and even now to this day, but when I look back on it, I think the most important thing for, I think a lot of people might say, oh, for the parents to learn tools and strategies and all that stuff. It's not that. It's taking a look at yourself as a parent, and how are you understanding it? How are you seeing it? How are you showing yourself to them? Like, are they seeing you be accepting of it? How are you receiving them? Because I think that is as hard as the school stuff can get for them, and any other people that don't understand it. I think that if they can come home and know that we've got their back, I think it makes a world of difference. And I really think that's one of the most important pieces, is how you receive them and how you accept them.
I like that. That is huge. And I've seen it both ways, which it breaks my heart when I see parents who don't believe in it, do not accept their children, being a little bit different. I understand the labeling piece, but the reality is that they were diagnosed this way, and to be able to use that to an advantage is still a really good thing. It's not a bad thing. So it really does break my heart. So I completely agree with that.
Yeah, it's such a good point, right? Is that, you don't necessarily want to have that label. You don't want to go through life always, seeing it as a bad thing, right? But at the same time, in order to get those accommodations, I think it is important to have that label to begin with, sadly. One day you hope that, and I see it changing. I really see it changing, especially in elementary schools, is how, they're so much more flexible about how kids learn, or how they're even comfortable in a classroom setting. They have that flexible seating where, oh, you can sit in this kind of seating, or this kind, you don't have to just sit at a hard desk to learn. And so I see that they're changing, and that whether or not somebody has a label or not, they're going to help a kid kind of figure out along the way, hey, that, I learn better when I'm not around people, or I learn better when I'm in a comfy seat, or I learn better when I'm in something where I get to move. Or, hey, this teacher recognizes that I need to fidget, because when I fidget, I actually learn better. It's not a distraction for me. I'm actually listening. Even though I'm not looking, I'm listening, I'm hearing you, and I'm learning. So I think it's great.
I love that. So let's switch gears a little bit. So I want to talk a little bit about coaching. And, a lot of people recommend coaching, of course, therapy, going to psychologists. But tell us a little bit about coaching. Why is coaching such a really good avenue to go through or to take versus, and tell us the difference between coaching and maybe going to a therapist, for example.
Okay, I think my best way to describe this would maybe even just to use myself as an example, because I've done both. I mean, I've actually had both. So I've gone to a coach and I go to therapy. And so I think when I look at a coach, I think a coach is more focused on the who. You know, who are you? You know, who are you being in this particular situation? Who do you want to become, or who do you know, that kind of thing. Versus with therapy, I think it's more about the why. Right? So for me, I could coach myself even through this whole separation. There was a ton of self-coaching that I did. Plus I had a separation coach as well, but with tools and strategies and okay, like, you know, I can't get motivated to do this or that or whatever. So I'm going to use all these strategies to keep me going and getting me doing all this stuff. But then when it came to some stuff about myself through the divorce and the marriage and everything, I had to sort of take a look at, sort of go backwards in sort of my childhood to better understand, you know, why I reacted the way I reacted, or why I behaved the way I behaved, and all that kind of stuff, in order for me to sort of empower myself going forward to not repeat, you know, heal that part of myself, that inner child from the past, in order to go forward healthier. And then the coaching, you know, it was so helpful with, you know, false beliefs, and coaching's so great about looking at your strengths and helping you understand your strengths and how you can use those strengths to, you know, do what you have to do and get done what you have to get done, and, you know, become who you want to become. You know, you focus on those strengths and your talents, and, you know, you're going to thrive and you're going to be a happier person. And, you know, just, I don't know, like yourself, you know?
That makes sense. So for ADHD coaching specifically, you know, I've been just listening to different people talk about ADHD coaching versus just general life coaching. So if someone really wants to work on their ADHD aspect, is it important to have an ADHD coach and someone who can really work with people with ADHD? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And there is a difference. There really is a difference. Because I remember one of my early classmates, I think she was taking the very first program, the ADHD program, and she was a regular life coach. And she had clients where they just weren't, there was still something that just wasn't working, and she couldn't figure it out. And so she thought, if I learn more about ADHD, because I guess they had ADHD, then, you know, maybe this will help me. And there is a difference, because those with ADHD, they really need to be empowered to find their own solutions, rather than be told what the solutions are, or this is what I want you to do, this is how I want you to do it, and these are the deadlines of your goals that I want you to stick to. It's not going to work, because they have to feel like they made the choice. They have to feel like they did it, that they came up with those answers, because they know their best. If they learn their best brain wiring, you know, then they can come up with their own solutions. Like, okay, I know now that I'm a visual learner, and I know that, you know, charts I don't like looking at charts, but if I can turn something into a drawing, I'm going to learn so much better with
Mm.
that drawing than with that chart, right?
Yes.
And, so they need to be empowered that, they can come up with their own strategies. I mean, you do have to do a little bit of consulting sometimes where you are kind of educating them, on certain things, especially if they don't understand the way their brain wiring works.
Mhm.
You want to be able to help them understand that, and figure that out together. It's not a you're it's like a relationship together. You're doing it together. You're figuring it out together.
Gotcha.
And you're just there to sort of, you know, um, I don't know how to describe it. It's like, I wouldn't even say that you're their guide. You're walking together side by side, figuring it out together. But the outcome for a client is on them.
Gotcha.
The agenda, every time they come to that session with you, the agenda is sort of on them. And then whether they take action, whether they choose to allow you to take them down a road, let's say dealing with false beliefs, which can be very uncomfortable territory for people. Their success is going to be on them. They have to have the buy-in. They have to see that they're worthy to give themselves the time and investment in themselves.
Mm. Okay, that
That's
makes
the
that
important.
makes
I think
sense.
that's the important piece, and that's the hard part with younger people. I think is understanding that they're investing in themselves. They're investing in their future by spending that time to better understand, how they tick.
Yeah. And so there's group coaching and one-on-one coaching. Is one better than the other? I mean, when should someone look at being with a group type coaching setup versus a one-on-one?
I think that both are so valuable for different reasons. I know for myself, I I love being in a group. I think some people thrive that way. They do better because it's like you're cheering each other on, right? You've got each other's backs, you're cheering each other on, you're amongst people that totally get what you're going through. And that can be huge for some people. Whereas some people might not really be into that whole thing and just want to do it on their own. And then even with the group coaching, like let's say for my separation divorce program that I was in, we had the group calls, but then we also have some one-on-one so that we can really dig in deep about some stuff that maybe you wouldn't want to talk about in front of the group.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
Okay,
they're
that makes
both so, you know, valuable.
okay. So for those who are interested in getting into coaching, so they have a passion just like you, you
Mm-hmm.
determined that you have a passion around ADHD coaching. How could someone find out more information? What did you do to get more information about the coaching aspect?
Well, for me, like I said, I had hired a coach at one point.
Right.
So I had sort of been going to her support group first off. And
Okay.
then, I went to the conference with her
Right.
and I just learned more through her, through the
Hmm.
conference.
Hmm.
And then, I had asked her, where did you do your schooling? So then I ended up joining the ADD Coaching Academy, or
Okay.
ADCA, as we call it.
Yeah.
I ended up doing my schooling through them a few years back. I don't know, is it 3 years now? I don't even know. It's so goes by very
Time goes
quickly.
by. No?
I know. I don't even remember how many years it is. But so I did it through them, and so they have like I did the basic coaching, then they have advanced coaching. They
Okay.
also have a family coaching program, and what I thought was really cool about the way they did it was anyone anyone, if they're curious about ADHD, they can go in and take their first program. It's called Simply ADHD,
Mhm.
and it's all about ADHD. And what's neat about it is the people the man that found it, David, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. Gewertz. Anyways, it's terrible that I should know how to pronounce his name. He founded it, and he has ADHD, and
Okay.
he has it like the hyperactive ADHD. And then Barbara Luther, she is sort of a very important counterpart in it as well, his partner in crime, and she is inattentive. She has an inattentive, and she's a wonderful, lovely woman. I adore her. And so, yeah, you can take the Simply ADHD program, just anyone, if you're curious about it. And then the second one was called Personal Transformation, which is something that essentially you're going to be taking your client on. But when I took it, I took that course very personally. I went in specifically trying to apply it to myself, and it was life changing. I mean, life altering, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the coaching came after that. Like it's like a whole kind of program or whatever, but it was
Okay.
fantastic.
So my last question is that if just someone wanted to find a coach, how would they go about doing that? Is there, directories out there? I mean, how would someone go about finding their own coach?
Well, I mean, I think once upon a time, people found them through looking up through, I think it was ADA, or is it CADAC as well. But now I know that Camden has started the ADH directory, and it seems like people are really happy with what she does. I think it's a little bit more personal the way she does it, how she interviews the person and decides exactly which direction she thinks that they should go and who would be their best fit. Because I think the best thing about that part is that's the most important piece for a person, is that connection and that trust, and knowing that you've got that safe space, that space
Yes.
that there's going to be people that don't have that anywhere else in their life. And so to find that space with that person that you trust implicitly, I think is key. Very, very key.
Yeah, it is. It is. And
Yeah.
so, and just for the audience's purposes, so Camden's actually going to be on my ADHD Love Parent Talk. She's going to be on episode 18, December 30th. So actually, you'll see this video
Oh,
after
good.
the fact, but it's technically is in a couple days. so,
Well,
so I'm
that's
excited
hilarious.
to have her on there. So definitely
Yeah,
check that episode out.
excellent.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's awesome. So thank you for bringing that up. Um,
Yeah, no problem.
yeah. So just to summarize, is there anything that we missed? Any last minute tips, thoughts that you want to share with the audience?
You know what? It was, I think one of your last questions was sort of your takeaway, or is there anything important? And so I'm probably gonna have to read this off the page, just because
Sure. Yeah.
I like the way I put it, and I think it's so important.
Yeah.
Because what I said was, your child, I wanted parents or partners, or even about yourself. Your child is independent from you, and see them as such. They are not here to make you look good. They are here to give the world what they have been given to offer. Oh, there goes my let them find their way, advocate and support them, but do not rescue or punish them into succeeding.
Mm.
How allow them to live their path in their own way and their own time, and love them, accept them, and listen to them. They have the answers and solutions to their problems. Encourage them to be creative in finding their own solutions. And the more a child feels accepted and loved and seen and heard by their parent, the more they will persevere and thrive.
Nice.
My last piece.
That is beautiful. That is
And the
beautiful.
same could be said about how you see yourself too. If you have ADHD, how you see yourself as well is the most important piece. I mean, how your parents see you is so important growing up, but if you're already an adult,
Yeah.
then how you see yourself is what counts.
Love it. Love it. So are there any resources that you could recommend? Any books, YouTube channels, anything that you can share?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I mean, there's so many different folks on 80 in the ADHD community that I love. It's like I don't want to pinpoint any. The one person I'll say, and it's not even in the ADHD community, a person that really helped me shift my way of thinking was Dr. Shefali Sabare.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know if you've heard of her, but I saw this video on YouTube. I forgot who showed it to me. I think somebody sent it to me. And she was being interviewed. She was on a session of Oprah Winfrey's Sunday Soul Sessions.
Oh, okay.
And she was being interviewed about her book, The Awakened Family. And who's here? Somebody's here, sorry. She was being interviewed and she was talking about her book, and she was talking about the whole idea that you about how you don't see your child as an extension of yourself, and how you're independent, they're independent, and how important it is for you to see them as themselves, and that they were, brought into this world to, like I said before, to give the world what they were given to offer, not what you think they were given to offer.
Gotcha.
And so she has a few books, the Awakened Family, I believe it's called, and The Conscious Parent, I think, is another one of her books. I just absolutely love her philosophy for everything. It's fantastic. And it's such a great, great wow moment kind of video, that video with her and Oprah.
Nice. Okay. I will definitely make sure I look that up and put it in the comments.
Yeah.
And lastly, if anybody wants to get a hold of you, how can they reach out to you? What is your Instagram handle and any other resources?
My Instagram would be Coach Natalie ADHD. I have a Facebook page, but it's kind of under construction, so to speak. So I have to change that. I am in the middle of trying to transition myself into, not necessarily the total focus of ADHD. It's more the focus of women and empowering women. And I'm working on developing a workshop for women that are burnt out. Because I think especially, women as caretakers can really put so much of themselves into the caretaking part and then not take care of themselves. And then they find themselves burnt out, and, it's important for them to learn how to, meet their own needs and get their needs met and boundaries and all that stuff. So I'm kind of working on that as well.
Well, that's very exciting. Very excited. So when do you think you're going to have it ready to go? What is your target?
That's a good question. I'm working on that with my coach. I think this whole divorce separation process has kind of stalled me, like my unicorn headphones on my daughter.
Awesome.
It's kind of stalled me a little bit in some of my in this part of my life. So I'm working on that too.
Very good. Very good. Well, Natalie, I'm so excited again. So thank you. Thank you for coming on this episode and sharing your life. And yeah, it was really good. It was really good. So thank you. It was really good. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for doing what you do and putting all this information out there for everyone. You're such a wonderful support to the ADHD
community. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. So that is another episode of ADHD Love Parent Talk. If you would like more content like this, definitely make sure that you hit the subscribe button and hit that notification bell. So every time a new video goes out, it will notify you. And please do not forget to hit the like button on this video. All right. So thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day. All right, Natalie, take care.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.